Hello, welcome to Dog Food with Katherine Able, telling stories about dogs that feed your mind and spirit. This is part 4 of Some Old White Woman, Some Old Black Dude. This curse the old white lady bestowed upon him is terrible. Part of him wishes it would end, while another part of him couldn't bear to see it depart. The experience of feeling so much horror that he directly caused has hurt him, steadily hurts him, but also it's healing him. There's nothing he can do for the dogs that are gone and buried in a neat row behind the facility. He could tear the place down. A part of him wants it razed to the ground in the hopes that the memories will be razed from his mind as well. But he knows that it wouldn't be so easy. The new Gerald is incapable of erasing unpleasant memories of atrocious acts dealt by his hands or orders. It's a part of the changing, he thinks, as he walks past small grave after small grave. The graves run in double rows from one end of the facility to the other end. The little graves make him remember the puppies and toy breed dogs he slaughtered. Some are medium-sized graves that make him remember the foxhounds, the heelers, and basset hounds he slaughtered. Some are large-sized graves that make him remember the St. Bernards, mastiffs, and Great Danes he slaughtered. He knows he can discipline his mind to forget the face and fur of each dog, but as he stands looking down the rows of tiny graves tiny dug, and probably then gently filled, he makes himself recall the face and eyes of every single dog he saw that day. He will not give himself a pass on that day. If he is to continue to learn about this mystery called love, then he must learn to love truth. He walks back into the facility he turned from a barn that nurtured life into a vicious hole of violence and death. If Tiny can bury dogs and make them sacred, he can turn on a hose and begin the long, hard work of removing evil that remains on the walls, and hope that as he washes it away, whatever evil remains in him will be washed out too. 2 weeks later, Gerald is gliding down the long driveway in one of the silent golf carts he'd purchased for the valets. He drives to the mailbox to pick up the weekly food delivery. When he left his grandmother's house, he no longer had to cook for himself, though he still remembers how to do it, and that it was one of the few enjoyable acts of his youth. He orders all food and supplies online. He even orders toilet paper online. He has not left the house since he returned. He wants to be here when Tiny comes back. When he arrives at the end or beginning of his drive, he sees all of the packages are neatly stacked beside the oversized mailbox instead of inside it. He climbs down from the golf cart and opens the gate while Petal, Harriet, Poof, Jasmine, and Brownie wait for him. The lady team enjoys riding in the golf cart, so he takes them each day down the 2-mile length of driveway to the mailbox. Petal and Jasmine are in the front seat with him. Poof was at first, but the ride always excited her bowels, and Gerald couldn't take the smell of her excitement. She rides in the back seat with Brownie and Harriet. He didn't allow the puppies or Ruger to follow them because he didn't trust Ruger not to bolt. Ruger constantly seeks Tiny out, and one day last week he ran away and was gone a full 24 hours. Gerald doesn't want to think about Tiny's sorrow if he loses Ruger or any of them. He unlocks the gate and walks to the mailbox. Taking care of the dogs and the regular walks in the forest have eliminated the need for the cane. He's getting stronger every day. He notices the mailbox is open, which is unusual. He becomes immediately suspicious. He remembers with clarity what he did with the machine gun not too long ago. Nasty reprisals wouldn't surprise him. As he nears it and is able to see inside, he sees the bottom half of a shoebox sitting all alone in the big metal box. He pauses and listens, yet hears nothing. He moves nearer and is able to see inside the box. Someone has abandoned 4 recently born, tawny-colored kittens. He gazes at them with new Gerald eyes. After a few moments of considering the evidently breathing, thumb-sized forms, the terrible thought crosses his mind that the old Gerald would have carried them across the deserted country road and thrown them into the bayou without hesitation, maybe even watched them struggle and sink. But the new Gerald gently takes the box and hurries back through the gate, locks it, and drives back to the house as fast as the cart will go. The box is securely cradled on his lap. The lady team is adroitly weaving on the cushioned bench seats and grinning in appreciation at the feeling of the wind moving through their open mouths and across their faces. He looks over at them, sees the joy in their eyes, feels the joy in their spirits when Petal and Jasmine glance at him. He grins back at them, because thanks to the old white woman, their joy is his as well. He's now convinced that a pit bull mouth was designed to grin, not kill, not harm. He looks back at Harriet, Brownie, and Poof, and all 3 girls look at him as if on cue. The adoration and trust in their eyes is undeniable. He winks at them and faces forward. He has learned it doesn't take much to please the dogs as long as the dogs can be with him. That's what they desire most of all, to be with him, the past author and perpetrator of all misery in their lives, yet now the provider of too many treats, the eager companion of long walks, golf cart rides, and affection whenever they wish. He has learned that he, too, was not designed to harm, because kindness comes so effortlessly. There's no need for planning or manipulation or covert machinations. Kindness is natural and the first instinct in the face of light kindness. To betray kindness takes dark effort, and the darkness is not all transferred to the victim. It stays, festers, and grows like a kudzu vine, covering everything in its path, until light is hidden in the one who acts with thoughtless cruelty. But though the light may be forgotten and become a foreign thing, it's there. It's never fully extinguished. It only takes the gentle action of pushing away the ever-encroaching shadows through consistent acts of unselfishness and awareness of what one can become if pervasive carelessness becomes a way of life. The dogs want to be with him, and Gerald wants to be with them. He wants to see them, pet them, look at them, and please them, not only because he can feel their pleasure, but because feeling their pleasure has become not only pure delight, but also a reckoning. He'll be glad when he can share pleasure with Tiny's family without the instant accompanying unpleasant slideshow of his past actions. He wonders if it will ever cease. Then new Gerald thinks it'll be okay. He can take the unpleasantness as long as his life continues to overflow with these days and nights of indescribable and potent revelation. Yesterday he took the lady team to the lake located at the very edge of his property. He was curious about something. When he pulled the golf cart up to the edge of the water, no one got down until he did. When he walked to the edge, they followed and stood, like him, looking across the wide, calm expanse of it. When he waded into the water, they watched him with worry and fascination. His body was vanishing, but the human was not distressed. When only his head was showing, he began calling the girls to him. All but one ignored his invitation. Petal began to slowly wade into the water. When the water was at her belly, she stopped. The rest of the girls sat down to watch the mystery unfold. Gerald waited and watched her, quietly coaxing her toward him. She looked down at the water and at the disappearance of her legs, then back up at him. He continued to call her to him. Not taking her eyes from his face, she moved deeper into the lake. When her feet could no longer touch the muddy bottom, he saw and felt her confusion and panic. So he moved forward and gently took her into his arms. He felt her relaxing. He could feel the water moving gently against her body. He felt her panic subsiding. He continued to cradle her in his arms as he moved farther away from the shore. Petal licked the water and then his shoulder. When he thought he had reached the right distance, he hugged her to him and kissed her wet muzzle. He felt her relax even more. He sensed her calm, her curiosity, and her complete trust in him. How many times must he accept Petal's pardon until he can forgive himself? He's been hugging and kissing dogs, the very same dogs he was convinced had no brains or sensory perceptions. As he held Petal in his arms, he looked back at the rest of the lady team on the bank of the lake. He felt no ill will from them. It was as though they had forgotten his moral crimes. When will he forget them? Can he ever forget them? All of Petal's muscles were slack as she gave herself over to his embrace, as though it were the most natural and safest place in the world. He turned slowly around in the water. With his hands on her chest and abdomen, he'd held her out and moved her as though she were being pulled behind a boat. Even when he'd gone faster, she'd not been concerned. Her slow heartbeat went thump, 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 never changing its placid pace. Then he'd pushed her toward the shore, walking beside her as she swam, her body relaxing and enjoying the way the water moved around her and held her up. But most of all, she was enjoying the human who remained less than an arm's length away and would not let her come to harm. She had looked toward the shore. When the gooey bottom met her paws, she'd walked out, acting as though she'd been swimming all of her life, and not for just the past 5 minutes. Gerald moved back into the water and watched in amazement as all of the lady team walked into the water to swim toward him. He felt the water on their bodies and the pleasure they felt at their weightlessness. He felt the comfort they derived from the water too. When they reached him, he moved away toward the shore. They had followed. The rest of that afternoon had been spent watching the lady team become confident swimmers while ensconced against a backdrop of tall, healthy green trees and blooming wildflowers. Butterflies and bees fed on the bounty, undisturbed by Gerald's energetic throwing, again and again, of the right-sized sticks into the lake for them to fetch. And he couldn't help but laugh at the trail of bubbles that followed Poof wherever she swam. The laughter is a sweet, undeserved balm, as he's as aware of Tiny's fatigue, stress, and worry as much as he's aware of the calm joy that surrounds him. He searches for her every day, but to no avail. The activities of that afternoon had solved a puzzle and answered a question to which he suspected he already knew the answer. He can not only feel their emotions and the directions of their thoughts, he can feel every sensory experience they have. He wondered about this one day when he felt hungry after just finishing a satisfying meal. It wasn't his hunger he felt, it was Emmett's. The question came to him again when Snowball and Cotton rubbed against his leg. It felt good to him, but he didn't know if he was feeling their pleasure or his. Now he's quite sure of the depth and complexity of their shared connection. But is it just with them? When Gerald arrives back at the house, he places the kitten-filled shoebox onto the kitchen counter. With his right index finger, he lightly touches each kitten to confirm body temperature. Immediately after touching them, he can feel everything they feel. They're alive and healthy, but need food right away. They're very hungry, very uncertain, and very confused. Gerald searches through the kitchen pantry and storage to gather sustenance for one day. After that, they'll require food for their specific age-related needs. As he prepares their temporary fare, he orders proper food and has it box. He can feel their body temperatures dropping. He trots into his bedroom and opens the closet door to his well-ordered space. As he reaches toward the shelf where the folded heating pad lays, he hesitates and accidentally notices the perfect, dust-free order of his closet. After Tiny left, he hadn't known what to do. He'd never been alone in his life, and he didn't want to be alone now, with all of the inexplicable changes occurring and evolving. He'd moved around like a 100-year-old man, from the wounds, crippling loneliness, and full-time self-pity. The physical injuries would take time to heal, but the loneliness, how did one go about curing that? The dogs had sensed his fragility and watched him carefully, with Ruger watching him closest of all. Gerald was acutely aware of the unhappy feelings of Ruger. He knows he betrayed him while Ruger thought they were family. He feels Ruger staring at him and trying to comprehend why he would feed him and then try to kill him. He begins to see things from Ruger's point of view, from all of their points of view. He's learned it's a point of view that has more sanity in it than most humans possess. The dog's needs are simple, and except for seeking companionship and food, they're without ambition. And so they are peace-filled, pretty much all of the time. The only time their natural way of living and existing is altered is when humans interfere to use them for selfish and unseemly pursuits. Yet they quietly bear the burden of neglect and abuse. But when presented with the opportunity to experience generosity and true consideration, they melt into it and recover as though nothing unpleasant had ever been systematically visited upon them for years. From his comfortable chair on the front porch, Gerald spent a large portion of his convalescence watching the dogs, studying the behavior of the dogs, feeding the dogs, then petting and caring for the dogs, and always, always willing Tiny to come home. Now, as he walks back to the kitchen with a neatly folded, fresh-smelling heating pad, he looks at his house, and he remembers. His living room lacks the order and cleanliness Tiny imposed upon it. He remembers every day when he got up at noon or 1 o'clock, the house was spotless. His clothes were clean, the dogs were fed, and his brunch would be on the way. He remembers watching her mow the yard. In his degenerate perversity, he'd never let her grow a vegetable garden. Why did he refuse that request? She would have grown the best vegetables in the state. Everything she put her hand to, she did with diligence and excellence. He knows there's nothing she can't do if she is of a mind to. The new Gerald will tell her this. But is it even conceivable that after a decade of insults, browbeating, and abuse heaped upon her by old Gerald, that the positive words in support of new Gerald will be accepted and trusted? He has to believe they will. He has to convince her of their truth and apologize for all of his lies and mistreatment. He will, if only she will come home. He remembers the day after she left. He was disconsolately standing in the kitchen, eating a pitiful ham sandwich while watching the dogs eat. He'd found the huge pot of dog stew in the refrigerator. The laundry room freezer was stocked full of 10-pound bags of leg quarters, bags of diced carrot and peas, broccoli florets, and clear Ziplocs filled with small cubes of sweet potatoes. He knew it wasn't for Tiny, and that no one else had been here, so it was all for the dogs. He'd found all of the food, the different types, some for older dogs, arthritic dogs, puppies, for active dogs, for dogs like Poof with digestive issues. He had a mind-numbing amount of time on his hands, so he read and memorized the ingredient list on each bag of anything dog-related. After researching every single ingredient and then cross-checking, he had admitted to himself that he was impressed. Tiny, who couldn't even read, had chosen nutritious fare for physical and mental development. How had she managed that, with the close tabs he kept on her? Because love prevailed and always found a way. He'd looked at the dogs then, really looked at them, and saw how good they looked, how healthy they were. He knew it wasn't due to any action or thought on his part. It was all her doing. She loved these dogs like a family, and had taken the best care of them that she possibly could, or as much as the idiot Gerald would allow. He'd watched Petal turn and stumble, and he'd felt a sharp shooting pain in his left shoulder. Her arthritis was flaring bad that day. He'd put down his sandwich, turned toward the cupboard, and taken down the bottle of supplements that would ease her pain. He molded a pill pocket around it, then watched as she gently took it from him in gratitude. Petal, the sweet girl he'd forced to live in her own waste, to be covered in fleas, to be filthy, and to have her body worn to the point of almost killing her by forcing her to have litter after litter, non-stop, had licked the hand hanging by his side, then maneuvered the same hand until it was on her head in a petting position. As he looked down into her gentle brown eyes, he'd felt the kindness of her spirit wash over him, and once again, for the 10,000,000th time, he felt tears fall. It confused him to no end how he could have been so blind to the depth and mystery of these creatures. He doesn't understand how he could not have seen it, noticed it, when all over the world the intelligence, the versatility, and the skills they possess are constantly on display in blockbuster animated films, television shows devoted to dogs, dog-themed toys, clothes. The list never ended of examples glaringly illustrating the extraordinary attributes of this companion animal. How can this creature be so respected, yet so reviled? How did he not see who and what they are? Was it simply because they can't speak using a human language that they are so disdained? He had held them in such contempt that he truly believed they did not feel, much less think. Why was that? A generational curse? Or by only coming into contact with others who thought the same? His mind had sped through and examined each and every one of his contacts until he was awash in revulsion. What was wrong with him? Why was he like that? He knows the answer. Ruger tells him every time he looks up at him. He was an evil beast filled with evil thoughts, which led to evil actions and deeds. His former life was consumed with making others suffer. He now understands that his former existence was a form of insanity, a madness. His arrogance and anger had turned his heart to stone and blinded him. Through Ruger's eyes he sees the fighting circle, and as Ruger looks up, Gerald sees the rage, the mental derangement, the screaming, the yelling, the money-changing hands, the fists pumping the air, the red faces, the spittle spewing from the uncontrolled shouting. He's in Ruger's mind, feeling the doubt. These creatures are supposed to care for him, but terror and death have nothing to do with caring. Gerald had closed his eyes against the incessant flowing images. In that not long ago life, he ran after only what could serve him, benefit him, and the quicker, the better. He had not for an instant considered how he could serve. He'd viewed servitude as worse than a curse. So much time, so many years wasted, and what was the actual bounty of his reign of terror? He had no friends, knew no joy or peace, never felt comfort, never felt relaxed. Here, though, an undeserved second chance. A second chance and mountains of cash. But what can money do for a man who is ignorant, ashamed, and tortured by his past? His new insight into companion animals has not only fully awakened him to the mystery and fragility of existence, it has made him vulnerable, because for the first time in his life he genuinely cares about something and someone other than himself. He wants Ruger to trust him and like him. He wants to be a comfort to Petal and ensure her remaining years are easy. He wants to learn what life is about, because he now knows it isn't about money and domination, that it's a terrible distraction that misleads those participating in horrendous acts far away from reality. He understands how short-sighted a life filled with nothing but destruction is, because inevitably and without doubt, the destroyer is destroyed as well. When he re-enters the kitchen to take care of the kittens, he sees the dogs, except for Ruger, are sitting in a semicircle in front of him. They're watching him, waiting for the new adventure that this human introduces into their lives on a daily basis. And something smells interesting on the kitchen counter. They wait for Gerald to introduce them to it or to indicate the proper behavior regarding it. Their eyes are trust-filled, confident, and steadily gazing into his. There's no looking away or down in fear or in an impossible attempt to become invisible. They've wholly accepted this human as their friend and ally. They're all together in this mess called life, and by supporting one another, it makes figuring it out and quotidian living a lot more manageable. What does he have on the countertop in that box that he finds so compelling? Is it food? Because a lot of food happens in this room exactly on the spot where the box is. Quietly, and with the patient curiosity of the happy and well-loved, they watch and wait. Gerald moves to the counter to plug in the heating pad he'll use to warm the kittens. He slowly lifts the kittens in order to place the heating pad and a clean folded towel beneath them. The pad warms quickly. He mixes the food together in the blender until it's super runny liquid. He heats some of it on the stove. Then, with a syringe, he begins feeding each kitten. He can feel their thumb-sized bodies accepting the nourishment. It takes no time at all to fill their tiny bellies. With the heating pad becoming the perfect temperature, soon all 4 of the newborns are sleeping. He stands over them and watches their chests move up and down in life-affirming rhythm. He touches the heating pad 8 more times before he's assured they won't be burned and they won't be cold. They'll live. He knows they will, because he senses nothing other than hunger that bothers their systems. If he will feed them, they will live. If he will hold them in the cushioned palm of his hand while he feeds them, they will thrive. If he cherishes them as they grow, they will develop distinct personalities, and their intelligence levels will flourish. If he gives them a stable and consistent home environment, they will love him until their days end. Gerald considers this. The first creature on earth who will truly love him will be a cat. His cat. His cats. He must give them suitable and complimentary names. Names that will not demean them. Names that, with every utterance, will undeniably indicate more about the character of the owner than the character of the pet. Names that are appropriate and fitting. Something they will come to when called, and something he'll have pleasure calling. He calls them the Cat Quartet. He names them Quentin, Quincy, Quantum, and Connie. 3 boys, 1 girl. He is Gerald, pet owner and nursemaid, first time actually engaged pet parent, and inept namer of companion animals. The kittens and the puppies are the ones who show him the way. The young ones direct him toward that which he seeks by their total trust, total inhibition, and undiluted adoration of him. Had it not been for the kittens, whose lives he saved, and the puppies, who admired him at first sight, the puppies whose names were Emmett, Lolly, Snowball, Cotton, Silky, and Day, who could have been Petal's clone but for his gender, the puppies whose names he learned because they were engraved on red hearts that dangled from brightly colored collars. Had it not been for them, he might have found himself stuck in a rut. Tiny's family, whose names he knew because they too had thoughtful red-shaped hearts dangling from their collars. All of the dogs' names had obviously been bestowed with tenderness and consideration. Tenderness and consideration which had never been demonstrated to Tiny for the entirety of her life. He knew. He saw where she came from, and he knows where she wound up, and that she wound up where she was because of where she came from. Yes, indeed, the old white woman certainly did a number on him. Because of her curse and the unfathomable pain that followed, Gerald becomes a human being, and to his surprise he finds that though he's never felt so vulnerable, nor has he ever felt so alive, he's relieved that the transformation is taking place in front of eyes and minds that will never think him a fool, though he most assuredly is one of the greatest to ever walk the planet. It's on the walks in the surrounding forest with the dogs that he deepens the breadth of the curse. The only ones he allows to come on the long walks are Harriet, Poof, and Brownie. Ruger always stays behind with the puppies. Petal and Jasmine's bodies have been too sorely used, and the long treks are difficult and worrisome for them. Harriet, Poof, and Brownie are younger, and run down pine straw-strewn trails with delight and strength. He feels their muscles and minds appreciating the exercise and sights. It has taken weeks for him to stop berating himself for making these incredible, intelligent creatures live their lives in their own filth and feces on 6-foot chains and in squalid accommodations. He will never do something so malign ever again. He knows his physical healing is proceeding more rapidly than normal because of his routine. His daily routine of caring, being loved, nurturing others, and 0 acts of violence. His feelings for the puppies are confusing. He doesn't understand them. They're intense while being completely innocent. He monitors their health while ensuring their safety. He makes sure their minds are stimulated and their bodies made strong. He has laughed more than ever, genuine laughter absent of any Machiavellian calculation. One day, he thinks out of the blue that if he had children, this is what he'd do for them. He's suddenly greatly saddened, because if he would do this for his dogs with purpose, planning, forethought, and pleasure, surely a mother would want to do the same for a child she carried in her womb, to whom she gave birth, suckled at her breast, and never gave birth to another. There is no anger, only sadness, which the dogs chase away when they move toward him, sensing a need to share comfort. Gerald, the greatest fool to ever walk the earth, accepts their hugs and kisses, and no longer embarrassed to love, returns their affection fourfold. The dogs have changed him. Dogs have turned him into a human being. He's lucid enough to realize that he's not the first person whose life has been completely transformed by companion animals. Book after book after book arrives and educates him on all things animal, but with a supercharged focus on dogs and cats. Quentin, Quincy, Quantum, and Connie fascinate him to no end. Their elegance and gentleness soothe his spirit. Their bravery among 12 pit bulls bred for fighting astounds and amazes him. Animals are extraordinary. He feels their curiosity, their consideration of their surroundings, their interest in their family, and he is humbled by the profound simplicity of their point of view. Humans need to take note of the civility to be witnessed in the gathering of animals. He observes how they get along, share, comfort, and defend one another. He looks out onto the green grass of the front lawn, and what he sees is a family. It only took 4 abandoned kittens for the notion to finally penetrate his obstinate mind. A person's dogs and cats are his or her family. They bring layers of richness and growth to the family unit, and like children, teach one to be more compassionate, less selfish. The person who has animals and treats them as family members will inevitably have his or her worldview spring wide open. Petal, Jasmine, Harriet, Poof, Brownie, Ruger, Emmett, Snowball, Cotton, Lolly, Day, and the cat quartet. He speaks each name aloud and feels the love each and every one directs toward him, except Ruger. Ruger's suspicion has yet to fade. But this too only indicates a depth that he respects and is grateful to be aware of. He likes that when they look at him that he feels the forever of it. They will love and admire him forever. They will follow him wherever he leads. Except for Ruger, they trust him. New Gerald smiles at them, winks at Ruger, and nods his head, knowing that they understand he respects them too, that the days of his ignorance are past, that finally what they feel is what he feels. The wonder of it is sanity in its purest form. While he waits for Tiny to return, he reads books on animal husbandry, carpentry, gardening, land management, and poultry farming. When he's bored, he manages the vast financial empire he began building at age 7. Finance, administration, and multiplication of money is one of Gerald's gifts. He's not really interested in it. He doesn't care about being mega rich, though he's not far from it. For Gerald, the building and manipulation of wealth is a hobby that barely engages 1% of his brain. He is his only competition, but no greater challenger could he have found. For an hour each day, 5 days a week, he checks his accounts and scours the world for undiscovered investment opportunities. He possesses the canny ability of uncovering criminal activity, which he'll follow for fun to exploit, or until he gets bored and outwits them because it's too easy. Sometimes he follows the trail to the source, and then methodically destroys the source once his bank account reflects the bounty from his precise exploitation. Thus, Gerald becomes richer and richer as each day passes. Some people knit, Gerald outwits. He has tried to locate Tiny by using the internet and private investigators, but she continues to elude him. He can feel her stress, her fatigue, her hunger, her despondency and loneliness, her worry, and of late, her fear. He has not felt her fear this strongly and consistently. Something is nagging at her. Something is wrong, and she feels powerless. But try as he might to figure out where she could be with the limited means she has and no legitimate ID, he still hasn't even come close to finding her. One night, very late, he bolts up from the bed, wide awake. He wakes up panting, as though he has been running for a mile. He's getting out of the bed when he's thrown violently back onto it. He feels fists punch his stomach and hands slap his face so hard his ears ring. He feels the clothes ripped from his body, and then, for as long as it takes, he feels the rape and violation of Tiny in every unimaginable way. Whatever multiple young men consumed with thoughts of depraved and violent sex can do to a 4-foot, 9-inch tall woman who doesn't even weigh 100 pounds, who was walking, then frantically running home from a 16-hour shift, who decided to take a shortcut because she was so tired. Gerald feels everything, but because he's a changed man, he immediately recalls what he subjected Tiny to for so many years, and because the old white woman's curse has no mercy in it, he feels every rape and every beating Tiny ever endured because of him. This night, Tiny suffers, but so does Gerald. He writhes in unending agony, revulsion, and self-loathing until unconsciousness finally reprieves him. The moment he regains consciousness, he reaches for his phone so that he can put his vast resources to work. It isn't long before he feels a drug-like sedation, and he knows that Tiny is receiving professional medical care somewhere. He knows that if he doesn't find her now, he may never. And with the deepest of sorrow and complete resignation, he realizes that when he finds her, she will never voluntarily see him, that the feelings of the very thought of him, which the attack has reawakened, make her want to vomit and scream. This has been Dog Food with Katherine Able. Until next time.